August 20th, 1707. The British Army is kept out of Pensacola, Florida. It is described as the greatest victory in British history. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And our guest tonight is a fabulous up-and-comer in the Denver comedy scene, a historian and the host of Saturday morning cartoons. Please welcome Jeremy Pysher.
Hey, that's me.
Thank you for being here. Sorry I stepped on your introduction right away. That's what I do.
I'm used to having an introduction stepped on. I have no idea what that means. Okay.
It's an old podcasting term way back from the 20s. The dumbest.
Long before podcasts were started.
Well, visionaries.
They were in genuine pods back then.
It's fine.
But they were delivered by the pod person. That's where that term comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
The friendly pod person who came by your house each morning with a fresh batch of podcasts. I miss those days because you could really have a conversation with them. They became like your friend every morning, seeing your
do you remember
person.
your guy?
Yeah,
your pod person?
Gerald.
Yeah. Gerald, no D?
No.
Not Gerald.
No.
But Gerald.
They didn't have D's on the name yet. That came later in the 50s.
I had old Stanley Stitch.
Stanley Stitch.
Yep. He was the founder of the Stitcher family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He founded that family that he was born into.
Well, this is already the most nonsense we started off an episode with.
That's exactly what I'm going for, and I'm not even doing the nonsense.
That's fine. That's our goal. Listeners, if you're still listening to the show
Also,
and you're
slightly
new...
weird that his name was Stanley Stitch, but he founded the Stitcher family.
It was an error on the sign. Mm-hmm. They just went with it. Listeners, if you're new to the show, each episode we take a look at a topic from history. One of us presents the official version of events, and another one comes up with the alternate history. And the winning story we accept as true history. Last episode, we had a giant double-length episode on Alexander Hamilton with our guest Shannon Camp. Mm-hmm. And the true history won out because how could it not?
Yeah.
It was so well done.
I'm going to say 90% less singing in that episode than I thought there was going to be.
I was expecting an intolerable amount of singing. This week, Jeremy, you're doing the true story.
Yeah.
Zach, you are doing the alternate.
I suppose.
All right. Well, Jeremy, if you're all ready.
Okay.
Take it away.
Let's talk about the Siege of Yorktown.
Oh, that's what we're talking about this week. That's what I forgot.
The ending of the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm. This is our last episode in our coverage of the American Revolution.
Ooh, the finale.
So
bloodshed.
Yeah, bloodshed, drama.
I mean,
we know drama here at the Revisionists.
That's our slogan.
Yeah, characters welcome.
We did not Google it.
Mm-hmm. We want our MTV.
Yeah.
VH1, please.
We know funny. Okay.
MSNBC that.
Yeah, and then also there's that do. That's our other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was that NBC?
Yeah,
NBC.
We're going to be taking down
the notes
all
G,
of this.
E, and C, which is short for General Electric Corporation, which is almost like subliminal messaging to me. But
well, that's conspiracy theory on top of conspiracy theory.
It is. It's the world's most inconsequential conspiracy theory.
I was warned by a previous guest, Jose, to make sure I took notes because you guys would derail me. Yeah. And I haven't even started yet, and I'm already derailed.
Well, Jose McCall, if you're listening, fuck you for giving away our secrets.
Well, that's how I win these things. I put the competition on the back foot immediately.
Exactly.
A big precursor to Yorktown getting started was that the French helped out the Americans in that the French sent over 5,000 troops, and they shipped them over, and they landed at Rhode Island in 1780. Those troops basically they were commanded by Rochambeau, which is just a great name. Oh, yeah. Rock paper scissors name, I guess. Is
he was a fan of schoolyard games.
Mm-hmm. His given name was Hertz Donut, in fact. And of course his porn name was Wet Willie.
But
Sorry.
In the summer of 1781, those troops were in Rhode Island. They were under George Washington, and Rochambeau was with them. And Washington had a plan. He wanted to take those troops and bring them down to Yorktown, where Cornwallis had a large stronghold. He had a deep water port that he had set up. He had multiple forts and all that shit that wanted to keep the Americans out of. But Washington didn't want it to be known that he was going down there, so he sent out a bunch of false leads that he was going to New York City. Did a real good job of sending out those false leads. Cornwallis was sure.
He wanted to be a number one, top of the heap, according to the false leads.
You want to be a number one?
To a Frank Sinatra song.
A number one. Yeah, I got it. da 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 da. Nah.
Stop spreading the news. We got a secret invasion coming.
They were going down from Rhode Island to Yorktown, which is in Virginia. They had to go through New York. On the way down there was the 4,000 French, 3,000 American troops that Washington had with him. They began their way down there. They landed in Philadelphia, and the American troops were unhappy. This was already a long way through, 1776. That's when that Declaration of Independence happened. When
the honeymoon's over at that point.
They wanted to be paid. They didn't want this inconsequential continental currency that was just stupid paper to them. And what Rochambeau did to strengthen that French-American bond was he actually gave Washington half of the Spanish gold that he received from them, and he gave that to Washington to give to his troops, which really strengthened the bond between the Americans and the French.
Yeah, money.
Yeah, money is
Spanish gold.
Yeah,
that's the kind of money you tell people that you got.
That's like romance
you
money.
Home and like, honey, I've come into a small amount of Spanish gold.
I mean, if you really want to woo a lady on Tinder, you talk about the amount of Spanish gold you have back at your place.
Yeah,
I would tell
out of my Tinder
anyone if I had any Spanish gold. So that's just. I mean, I tell anyone if I have $5, so if I had any Spanish gold, that would be it. Washington took the troops to leave Philly to head down to Virginia. He did make one quick stop in Mount Vernon. Stopped at home. He stopped at home
in front of all of his. I like to imagine he left his troops waiting outside. Well, he went home.
I prefer to imagine that, like, when they were leaving Philly, he was like, "Shit, guys, I know I left my garage door open.
I have to go yell at a human being to close it for me."
Wait, you guys are thinking that he left? I really just think he went home to bang Martha. That was it, right?
Oh, maybe. I mean,
you can multitask.
He's got wooden teeth. There has to be one, or elephant teeth. I didn't hear the dollop about him.
Well, I mean, he has teeth that were bought from the people he kept enslaved.
I also, yesterday when I was doing this research in the very lovely Mutiny Information Cafe, check it out, 2 South Broadway, that there is a conspiracy theory that George Washington may have been black. I don't know.
Well,
I feel like there is some evidence to the contrary.
I mean, first of all, he was not. I feel like that's the biggest evidence to the contrary.
Well, we'll strike that one out. But just saying.
I mean, I feel like if he was, he may have been way more sensitive on the whole issue of slavery.
The beautiful thing about conspiracy theories, they can be about anything.
That's true. They do not even have to make sense.
Play this podcast backwards to hear a special message from the Freemasons.
Our sponsors for this episode, the New World Order. New World Order. Stop it.
Oh! Are we talking about the NWO from the WCW? Is that...
What does that mean?
That's from wrestling from 1900s. So...
This is about Rick Rude.
Ric Flair was in the NWO for a short period of time. All right. So...
When we get to our NWO episode, we'll learn all about it.
Washington, he has his troops in Philly. He's taking them down, this Franco-American troops, and they finally arrive in Yorktown, Virginia, in late September of 1781. Cornwallis is a little bit surprised. He wasn't ready for that, and the
monocle falling out, sound effect.
Yeah, he was holding a cup of tea, I believe, and the monocle fell right in there.
Of course. His corgis started going nuts. Mm-hmm.
And the Americans and the French, they did pretty well. They brought a lot of guns with them, a lot of howitzers.
I mean, that's what you do.
You know what? Smart thinking.
They did pretty well.
To quote Tommy Wiseau in The Room, "You brought all my guns. Good thinking."
Wait, is that...
Well, he says, "You brought all my friends," I believe.
Okay.
But,
We need to talk about what quoting means.
Paraphrasing.
It's even that. 'Cause...
while they were headed down on the land, there was also a naval operation. The French West Indies naval operation was headed by Comte de Grasse.
Top to Grass, who loved hitting that herb.
He had a large. What was that?
Love that herb. Come to grass.
Love that herb. Okay.
Talking about marijuana.
When
Cannabis. Sorry. I'm a monster.
We attack at 4:20, right?
No, that's far too late in the afternoon.
I am completely sober at this part of the day. So at the beginning of the summer, when Washington was sending those fake plants out that he was going to New York City with Rochambeau, it was also part of Count de Grasse's plan that he was going to go there, and they were the part that conspired to meet him there, and that's when it all conspired up that he was going to meet them at Yorktown. He ended up getting there a little bit before them, which
is awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it worked out well because he had a huge naval fleet. The French West Indies fleet was massive, and they ended up battling in that Chesapeake Bay, and just completely wiped out Cornwallis's fleet in Chesapeake Bay, which already hindered Cornwallis quite a bit, and that already opened up Cornwallis, which at the end of September of 1781, that's when Washington showed up. Beautifully, Washington had some great plans.
Yeah, and Cornwallis, whether it was like hubris or just poor planning, had kind of refused help or refused guidance that maybe don't get backed into a corner at Yorktown. Because
I mean, towards the end, he thought he was going to get some reinforcements coming, but he did have a large amount of hubris that he thought, oh no, they're going to New York City, we are fine.
I just pictured him going, look, I have the most hubris. I have the best, grandest, most beautiful
It's like
hubris.
a proto-Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he went to Germany and changed his name to Drumpf, and that's how he got the Trump line.
But
He founded the Trump family. Callback.
September 28th, the battles between the British and the Franco-American troops began, which traditional, still the late 1700s warfare lines and all that. The Americans were still using their, which they started using that guerrilla warfare where they're hiding and, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But also, Washington had this new plan he had because the British in Yorktown had what were called redoubts, which are just large forts, lots of guns, huge guns and forts and bastions and poles and stabby thingies. I have a history degree, mostly in French Revolution art. That's what I like to talk about. That's why I talk about stabby thingies. So,
Whatever killed Marat. Yeah.
So what Washington decided to do ever so brilliantly was dig holes. He was going to dig parallels, dig trenches. And what
like he was doing during his stay in Valley.
Not just holes that are just around. They were for a strategic purpose.
He dug trenches from the
holes
American...
filled with like hustlers and things.
Yeah, he had to hide all of his porn somewhere.
For morale.
It is porn and some golden tablets.
Whole shit. Shia LaBeouf.
Which
in
sometimes
French,
bullshit is literally shit.
Yep.
He spat in them and they walked away, just like in Stanley Yelnats. Okay.
Also, Shia LaBeouf's name in French translates as Shia the Beef. Continue. It's my favorite fact from all of
time.
Yes.
Wow.
I did not. One of the things I really appreciated about Washington during this time was he didn't just go, hey guys, we're going to build a trench to the redoubts. He actually was out there digging them. And while meaning this time, there wasn't just like the British were just like, oh, you guys are going to build or dig this hole. Cool. They were shooting at them. Washington was being shot at. And
Which he famously loved.
yeah.
He sent letters about how he never felt as alive as when he heard the sound of bullets whizzing by.
Yep. And I mean, that also kind of speaks to the thing we've talked about being the source of Washington's greatness. Not so much like that he was a brilliant tactician, because he wasn't. It was more his leadership qualities and his inspirational qualities.
He was the Travis Pastrana of his time.
Yeah, it's what is this? Is this the guy who invented pastrami? What is this?
No, I said he was the Travis Pastrana, the guy who does the backflips on the motorcycles.
Again, misread the audience for this.
All right.
Was this about the world's fastest Indian with Anthony Hopkins? What are
You
we
guys
talking
don't watch the X Games? Okay.
Is this Triple X with Vin Diesel? Is this what we're talking?
Pretty much.
Famed
Okay.
candy ass Vin Diesel.
I haven't looked at my notes in a while. Where were we? we
The
probably
trench
got
warfare.
long.
Yeah. Washington's digging trenches with his bros.
Yeah. So that first parallel was supposed to be
Holes before bros. Sorry.
was supposed to be 2,000 yards, and that started on October 6th. October 9th, it was finished. The guns were in place. That ended up being 3 24-pound guns were in there, 3 18-pound guns, 2 18-inch howitzers, 6 mortars, a total of 14 guns were in there. And on the 9th, that's when the firing started. At 3 p.m., the French started firing. At 5 p.m., the Americans started. It's when
DeGrasse, you know when he started.
Yeah.
420, bro. This is where
Reefer.
He lit the cannon with his joint.
This is where
Kept that cannon cherried. I know a surprising amount of marijuana facts for someone who's never smoked marijuana.
Washington famously fired the first shot, and it's said that when his shot landed on the British general's dinner table, which is pretty hilarious to me. I just
it's like a very duck soup moment, I feel like.
It would be a great opportunity on the part of the British general for a one-liner, just to be like, this isn't what I ordered.
There's a cannonball in my soup, waiter.
I just also don't see how it hits a table and doesn't hit any of them.
It just lands at a turkey's butt. I guess it's not the turkey's butt, but whatever.
Yeah, and things pretty much went downhill from there for the British. They did not
Inauspicious
do well, and continued guerrilla warfare. The British still were like, we're gonna stand in a line, and continued to slaughter the stupid British. If there are any British ladies that want to talk to me, this was 300 years ago.
So when you say like British ladies, I pictured like lords and ladies. Like if there's any nobility.
If you're listening, Dame Judi Dench, please.
I'm mostly talking to Adele.
Has she been ennobled?
I have no idea.
Well, let's get on that. Hashtag Dame Adele.
Yeah, let's do
Has a
that.
nice ring to it, to be honest with you.
2 days later, October 11th, Washington decided to dig a second parallel. Cornwallis was still holding out. There were still a few more redoubts left. He dug a second parallel. This time, there was a house that was off in the distance. The parallel was almost finished being dug. Washington decided to go in. This time, no guns, no muskets, cold steel. Blood. Cut their throats.
And when Washington said it like that, Hamilton was like, "Are you okay, Washington?
Yeah,
You're talking a lot like Rambo, which is not a thing that's been invented yet."
And Hamilton was completely part of this part. He was part of the one that was. The French took one of the redoubts. Hamilton was sent to take one of the other ones.
It's like positions 9 and 10, I believe.
Yep, that's exactly it. And they were successful. And on the morning of October 17th, the French, or not the French, usually it's the French. The French helped us this time. the British sent out a lone drummer and one officer who just waved a white handkerchief, and that was the surrender.
Bangers and mash, I believe.
And the Americans, of course, they captured them, and they captured all the
took the boys' drum.
The British officers. And what I find hilarious is usually they take the bands and all, because in the 18th century things didn't make sense. You had a band for your military, and
whereas now the band for the U.S. military, I think, is Drowning Pool or what?
Yeah.
Probably
Canada's is Nickelback, of course. But instead of making them play an American tune or a French tune, they still made them play a British tune, which ended up being The World Turned Upside Down, which made perfect sense, and we won. And now we're allowed.
And I believe this speaks to the hubris. Cornwallis himself claimed that he took L and couldn't show up to the actual surrender. So he did not actually attend the actual physical surrender.
As we mentioned before on the John Lawrence episode, Yorktown was the last major battle. There were still skirmishes. There were still British troops around, especially in the South. But this was really the beginning of the end, and which led directly to the Treaty of Paris and all of that. Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, if you're all set with the alternatives.
What is your kerfuffle about?
I think it's appropriate that we are...
You just wanted to use the word kerfuffle, which I respect.
Our unit on the American Revolution on Yorktown, because so many of the people we covered were there at one point or another. You got Washington, Hamilton, Marquis de Lafayette. Lawrence showed up near the end for a little while. And Idris Elba was also there.
Yep, of course. As Stringer Bell or as Idris Elba?
We'll get to that. So King George III, as we know, was aware of dark magic because he was controlled by an undergod. And so he managed to find another person who's a purveyor of dark magic, the Dark Stranger, who you may remember is now known as Chuck Lorre. If you've listened to our Hannibal episode, and
deep cut.
He struck a deal with the Dark Stranger to create a force that would destroy the Americans once and for all. But he made a classic evil genie mistake in saying that he wanted a force to crush the Americans, but did not say that it shouldn't crush the British as well.
Oh, so this is like a weird monkey's paw thing.
Yeah, I mean,
because a monkey's paw is more ironic. That's sort of just like poor word choice.
Yeah, it's more like a gin situation, I think.
God damn it. Continue.
So they pulled a series of ancient demons from the ocean.
I was expecting something more mystical.
And the demons were led by a gigantic monster, a leviathan, known as Cornwallis.
What was that name?
Cornwallis. Yeah, it's got like a German spin on it.
I just picture like the demon naming itself that, like, yeah, it's got a little German flavor to it.
And panicked at the horror he had wrought, George warned the Americans of the impending doom coming slowly down the ocean. And in fact, the British forces in America, knowing that this was a terrible, terrible horror that had been brought to sight, joined with the Americans and the French in order to devise a plan to stop this as the monsters slowly approached Yorktown.
So this is... I mean, when we talk about these monsters, are they more elder beings? Are they like Gojira types? Or are they...
I mean, I think there's a mix.
Okay.
I was definitely seeing more of a kraken. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, kraken.
I mean, I would say humanoid in shape.
Okay. I was torn between like kaiju or like Lovecraft.
They're a little kaiju-y.
A little kaiju-y.
Yeah, I'd say kaiju-y.
For some reason, that seems offensive to something.
I mean, the kai makes it okay. But what could they possibly do against such overwhelming odds? But they had a secret weapon.
Wait. Okay, continue. I won't even guess. I think I know.
a super scientist misplaced in time. A young woman who had once been tried at the Salem witch trials and now was misplaced in time and had super science on her side because she was part of a super scientist society. And she could make a fleet of high-powered, uber-technological sort of jets and flying machines and things to fight.
Where does Idris Elba come in for this?
Well, so everybody had a role to play, but I'm kind of still getting to Idris Elba.
Okay, sorry.
And of course, Ben Franklin, who was a syphilis cyborg, helped her by funneling the pure power of syphilis, the most abundant resource at the time, into these machines.
So wait, what do you say I imagine you're being euphemistic, but when he says funneling the power of syphilis into these machines, do you just mean fucking the machines?
Well, sometimes. But sometimes it was more efficient than that.
How is that inefficient? That's like the most efficient method of transferring syphilis.
Okay, well, I mean, you don't know what kind of technology they were working with.
Fair. Fair.
So on the eve of these creatures arriving, Washington basically gives exactly the speech from Independence Day.
No, this isn't July 4th.
No, it's not, but, you know, there was a little bit of...
It's late September, early October.
Yeah, but like for effect.
Because he's seen Will Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today, like 10 months from now, maybe, we celebrate our Independence Day.
So these sort of advanced jets were called mechanized unilateral strafing crafts integrating tech systems, or muskets.
Okay.
And they were pretty effective at defeating the smaller demons. But Cornwallis was mostly unaffected by them, and the tide of battle began to turn. But there were 5 heroes present at Yorktown: Washington, Hamilton, Marquis de Lafayette, John Lawrence, and of course Idris Elba, who had a secret project the entire time in the works. They had, behind the scenes, with the help of the super scientists and Ben Franklin, been creating something called a strategic humanoid assembling mech, bionically operated, which they shortened to Shambo, or Robo-Shambo.
Motherfucker. Every time I think you're zigging, you're gonna zag.
It was a 5-piece mech that connected into one giant mech. And Hamilton obviously operated the right hand, which was the writing hand. Washington, the left hand for fighting. Lawrence and Lafayette were the feet for moving forward.
Yes.
And Idris Elba was the head.
Yeah,
because he's Idris Elba.
Yeah, look at him.
Also, he's the only one who knew. He was the one who taught them all how to operate these machines, because he was the only one who possessed the knowledge. Where he came from, not really clear. It seems as though Idris Elba just appears when the world needs him, and fulfills an important role at key moments in history.
Now, this giant mech, is it like Voltron? Is it like a Jaeger from Pacific?
You know what? The smaller one, there's 5 smaller ones.
Sorry, you just said that like you're about to challenge me to a fight.
There's 5 smaller ones that take humanoid form, and then they kind of morph into like the arms and the feet and the head.
So this is like a
Like the
Mechazord.
Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Yes, precisely so.
I like how you were waiting for us to say it. The most like specific singular thing.
And the day was won. The giant mech like managed to kill Cornwallis by like super epically shoving like a mech knife into its chin and through its brain or something. It was great. But it was so incredibly damaged in the fight that both Cornwallis's remains and the mech sank into Chesapeake Bay. The only thing that was recovered from the mech was a piece of equipment that was bell-shaped and was cracked during the fight, which was, of course, sent to Philadelphia.
Like, what part of the mech was the bell?
I'm going to say the heart.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking balls.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's go with that. There were 2 of them. Heart and balls,
now,
they're similar in nature.
when the mech sank, our 5 heroes, were they...
There was an ejector program. It was very intense because, let's say Lawrence's wasn't working and someone had to go down, like he had to run to somebody else's mech and get on their ejector. It was very harrowing. But they all survived and managed to make it back to Chesapeake. Now, most of this history is lost, and they never pulled up... They never pulled up the remains of the mech because the Freemasons were an anti-robot society.
Of course.
Willing to bend their laws just for this one occasion because it was such a dire situation. But afterwards, they returned to their robot-hating ways and decided to leave the mech deep under the waters of Chesapeake Bay. King George III was so moved by the unity that he gave up his campaign to retain America and allowed them their independence. Of course, Idris Elba disappeared until he was called on again for another important mission to play Stringer Bell in The Wire.
That's how long he was gone.
Yeah, and then also to be a general heartthrob thereafter. So
Yeah.
And of course, the contributions of General Heartthrob at the Battle of Yorktown should not be overlooked.
And also, yeah, whatever. DeGrasse was there, but he was high as fuck.
DeGrasse? Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
Pump the grass.
I thought you were talking about Neil deGrasse
He just kept
Tyson.
asking people if they were seeing this.
Really, he got the most out of that battle.
He did.
Well,
He used to say, "There's no way to see, the best way to see the Battle of Yorktown is to see the Battle of Yorktown high," or whatever Jon Stewart said in that pig.
oh Christ, Zach, thank you.
Yeah, I think I tied a lot of things together in that one.
You did. And this one is this one's hard for me to judge. The Battle of Yorktown is filled with, like, Washington alone digging trenches. That's such a romantic image that it makes me love it, let alone like the bayonet charge over the redoubts, Cornwallis being trapped but also trapping himself at Yorktown. But there's also like this sort of Pacific Rim, half Power Rangers thing to go on. And
I don't doubt you for doing what you're about to do.
as much it has Idris Elba and it has giant mechs, I think I have to go with the alternate history.
Yeah.
You got to cast Idris Elba.
Yeah, I mean, come on. He's an American hero, even though he's British.
Yeah. Well, they were
Wait a minute.
Yeah. He's the hero of two worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Are you saying he saved the Americans from the British?
Well, he saved them from Cornwallis the demon.
Which was
okay.
summoned by the British, but then the British turned against, I guess.
Yeah, the British were working with us at the Battle of Yorktown, of course.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God.
And now the true alternate reality.
Now, I have a question also, because this is sort of plays into my leaning towards the alternate history. The mech that's at the bottom of the Chesapeake Bay, still there? Has anyone tried to lift it? Has anyone tried to
know, it's still
repair
there,
it?
unless we
Erosion.
learn something to the contrary down the line.
Okay.
Well, we got to be talking about 18th century technology.
Well, but this was a super scientist who would help build a time machine. She was very bright.
Still 18th century.
I mean,
What exists from that time period?
America.
America.
Sorry.
And look where that's headed.
Yeah, exactly. We got at least 6 more months on that shit. Our lease is almost up on America, basically, guys. We're going to hand it back to our landlords. Zach, thank you. Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, before we head out, listeners...
Oh, did you actually select your answer?
Oh, yeah, the alternate history, sorry.
You wanted to rub that in.
Back in the saddle. I lost last time. It feels so good to be back.
I'll be back.
So, listeners, we talked about this on the last episode, but October 3rd, we are hosting and involved in the Night of 1,000 Podcasts,
Whoa.
which is a live podcast showcase at Syntax Physic Opera in Denver, Colorado. We got a lot of great shows coming. We're trying to find a second night or a second venue so we can add more shows. But right now, it's us, Broadcast Geeks with former guest Nate Balding.
Right on.
We have Ice Cream Social with former guest Cody Spiker. Whiskey and Cigarettes, former guest Zach Moss. And Empty Girlfriend with Christy Buckley, who will be on the show soon. They're all like fucking amazing shows, and it's going to be a great time. So that's October 3rd at Syntax. More details on that on our Facebook page, The Revisionists, our Twitter, at RevisionPod. And you can always go to our website, revisionistpodcast.com, and write a review of the podcast on iTunes, which is super helpful. And thank you to everyone who's done that so far. We're getting close to 50 reviews, I feel like.
I think we're up 45-ish people have...
Yeah.
Not written, but starred, at least.
Yeah, and also real quick, every 2 weeks when I go to upload an episode, I check the subscriber metrics on the website, and they just keep exponentially going up. And thank you to everyone who has talked about the show or has subscribed to the show, because we went from 800 to 1,200 in a week.
Wow.
Which is great. And tell your friends and keep listening. And thank you guys so much for doing that. Before we go, Jeremy, like we said before, you are the host of Saturday Morning Cartoons.
Yeah, Mutiny Information Cafe.
Which is second to South Broadway.
Yep.
The next one is coming up the day this gets released, August 20th.
Yep. But it's every other week, so if you hear this the day it comes out, it's at 10 a.m. But also you can check me out September 3rd. Come hang out, watch some cartoons with me. And
then you do stand-up, and you're
Oh,
all over, and you're fucking fabulous. I love you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Zach, thank you as always for being here.
Of course.
And for everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I am Zach Powers.
Have a good time.
time.
You started predicting my stupid doesn't quite work sign off, and I love it.